For the week of December 7th, this is what's coming up on CT Examiner Weekly.
Can private equity fix what government can't? I'm Greg Stroud, Editor-in-Chief of CT Examiner, and this week we're talking about the unfulfilled promise of high-speed rail on the Northeast Corridor and one idea for how we can make it better.
That and more coming up in this week's special Transport edition. I'm your host, Brian Scott Smith. Welcome to you all. Amtrak, the National Railroad Passenger Corporation, was created by the US Congress in 1970, taking over flagging private passenger rail services on May 1st, 1971, to rescue the failing industry, consolidate operations, and provide a unified national network using hand-me-down equipment. Initially operating on borrowed tracks and inheriting a mix of cars, Amtrak streamlined routes, expanded service, introduced new technologies like computer ticketing, and evolved into the primary intercity rail provider in America, focusing on reliability, modernization like Acela, and connecting communities. Amtrak has never posted a profit since its creation in 1971 and relies on significant federal government subsidies, around $100 billion since 1971, with a mission of prioritizing service over profit. In fairness to Amtrak, no other regular passenger railroad service has achieved profitability in the US either since Amtrak's creation. So why is a private sector company calling itself AmeriStarRail looking to, in their words, plan the most dramatic transformation of Amtrak's Northeast Corridor service since America's first high-speed trains, the Metroliners, in 1969? We're here to answer that question and many more is Scott Spencer, Chief Operating Officer of AmeriStarRail, who joins us remotely from Delaware. Scott, welcome.
Well, good day. It's good to join you and your listeners on this podcast.
It's good to have you. Now, I suppose the question really is quite simple. Scott, why does AmeriStarRail want to do this?
Well, AmeriStarRail is set up as a private entity to achieve this for three reasons. Number one, the Amtrak operation right now, people complain is not as fast as anything in the world. Well, we deserve rail passenger service that is the best in the world. Secondly, Amtrak has a record ridership they achieved last year of over 15 million passengers on the Northeast Corridor between Boston, New York, and Washington. But that's only a single-digit market share. When you look at the US DOT's annual national household travel surveys that they do each year, and you look at the travel between city pairs of car, bus, rail, and air, between the cities on the Northeast Corridor, Amtrak only has a single-digit market share. In fact, that market share is so low that if you doubled that record ridership to 30 million, they'd still be only in the single digits. So the third reason, in addition to having the best rail passenger service and improving ridership, we want to confront the challenges that Amtrak has and create opportunities. And as a private enterprise, by doing so, we can do it profitably because we're taking a business enterprise that Amtrak is that is significantly underperforming its potential and achieving much greater results.
Scott, I want to bring Greg, the editor-in-chief, in now.
So, Scott, as I understand the Northeast Corridor right now, it's run in part as kind of a community. There's this Northeast Corridor Commission that includes not just Amtrak, but it includes freight rail, commuter rail, a lot of different players. And I know in Connecticut, only a portion of the line is owned by Amtrak. So how do you propose to work with these partners to improve service?
That's an excellent question, Greg. So what we're proposing is a partnership with Amtrak. And in doing so, we would still operate the Northeast Corridor trains. And right now, they are branded Next Gen Acela, and they're also branded Northeast Regional. We would streamline and simplify the operation by running all the trains at the same high-speed trains. So we would rebrand those new Next Gen Acela high-speed train sets as the Liberty Liner 250. That's to honor our nation's 250th birthday next year. And it's also the first passenger train in America to exceed 250 kilometers an hour. So by running everything with the same high-speed train, the Liberty Liner 250, it streamlines capacity and operations on the Northeast Corridor, and it benefits all the operators, including that segment that Connecticut owns between New Haven and the border of New York, that is the Metro North service. So it's really a win-win opportunity for us all to work together.
So I just want to clarify with you. You said you're going to streamline this, so you will do away with just the Northeast regional slower trains, and everything will be a rebranded Acela. Is that correct?
No, it'd be a rebranded Liberty Liner 250. It's the same train sets, but what we'll do in the rebranding is operate those high-speed trains with triple class service. So right now, as these new train sets are built, they have 386 seats. What we would do is allocate 255 for coach seating, 88 for business class, and 43 for first class. So every train would have triple class service, just like you have in the airline industry. You certainly don't have an airline flying a jet only for business and first class and putting all the coach passengers on propeller planes. So Amtrak has this incredibly inefficient operation. Nobody in the world runs high-speed trains with all these slower trains interspersed and dancing around them. It's just incredibly inefficient. So we're going to need to bring a world-class standard of operation. And just to clarify this, we're going to still run them as Amtrak trains, marketed, branded, and ticketed as Amtrak trains. AmeriStarRail is just going to take the financial responsibility for maintaining and financing the train sets, all the costs above the rail, and we'll pay Amtrak user fees to use the tracks and the stations. So we're just like an affiliated carrier in the airline industry, where you have American has American Eagles, or United has United Express flights. We'll just be an affiliated carrier with Amtrak.
So, Scott, my understanding is that the current train sets, at least the slower train sets, they typically have about 480 seats. So with these, if we're running a 9-car faster rail, then do we lose total seats?
Excellent question, Greg. So the train sets, as they are built, do have less total seats than a typical Northeast regional train, which can have over 500 seats. But what we're doing with our service plan is running the trains more frequently, and we're generating more capacity with more trips. So, for instance, we're running the entire Northeast Corridor service from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And what that means for Connecticut, you'll have a train every hour in each direction, 19 times a day for most of the stations. I mean, there's some stations like New London, Old Saybrook, we'd stop every 2 hours. But New Haven, Stamford, those stations would be hourly. And then what it means for a city like Bridgeport, Connecticut, finally we'll have high-speed train service. The largest city in the Northeast Corridor with over 150,000 people has no high-speed train service, only the slower coach trains. So this is what we're saying. We're making a dramatic transformation of the Northeast Corridor. And for the first time in America, coach passengers will have access to high-speed trains.
So another question. I see that in your plan, the idea is to run trains from Boston to New York at about 3 hours, 2 hours and 59 minutes you list. Currently, I think Acela is running at best about 3 hours and 30 minutes. So
340, yeah.
So say a 30 minutes savings. I mean, reliability is clearly one of the keys to making all of this work. But where is that 30-minute saving?
Okay, well, that is actually the second phase of our plan. The first phase of our plan with the Liberty Liner 250 is use the existing 28 train sets, hourly making the stops between Boston, New York, and Washington. Then also an additional service hourly between New York and Washington. And a third service hourly between New York and Washington runs nonstop. What you're speaking about there between Boston and New York is a plan for nonstop service that would run in 2 hours and 59 minutes. That's how we achieve it. But that is some years in the future because we have to build additional train sets to have that capacity for that nonstop service.
Scott, I also want to ask you as well, with all these extra trains, I mean, isn't there going to be like a bit of a coordination problem? Because Acela currently gets precedence over the slower trains. If you're going to increase the amount of them, what does that mean, obviously, for other services like the slower Northeast Regional and also Metro North?
Yes. So when you take a look at our operations, we're streamlining the Northeast Corridor and simplifying the operation because all the Amtrak trains' speeds will be synchronized in fixed slots. So we're going to use the world-class operation that exists in Europe and Asia of running hourly schedules on a memory schedule. So once these schedules are set, you'll know that at New London, your trains are every 2 hours, 12 minutes past the hour all the time with these fixed memory schedules. So we set it and forget it. And then all the commuter operators have much greater flexibility in using the other slots that are available because we're not going to change the schedule. And secondly, we will no longer have high-speed Acelas trying to get past regionals, which forces them onto the side tracks between New Haven and then New Rochelle and delays Metro North trains that way. We will no longer need to do that. They're always primarily staying on the center tracks, except for when we stop at Bridgeport or Stamford. So across the entire Northeast Corridor, we're simplifying and synchronizing this. And the best example is what you achieve with a great Broadway musical. When everybody is on the same choreography and the same cues, you got a great show.
So Scott, currently, I think there's something called NEC 2035, which is this sort of big plan to invest in the Northeast Corridor. And I think that there's roughly $100 billion of unfunded infrastructure upgrades.
That's right.
Would your plan still require the taxpayers of the federal government to go? Does it assume that plan happens as sort of programmed?
Well, Greg, what we're proposing to do for next year is using the existing infrastructure. And as I said, we help the existing infrastructure perform more smoothly, even at Penn Station, New York. So I'll just give you this example. If you board a Amtrak train today from New Haven and you're going to Philadelphia, you're going to sit in New York 15, 20 or more minutes. We streamline the operation so that the station stop in New York is just 2 minutes. So we're speeding up the trip from New Haven to Philadelphia 15 minutes. You'd have to spend billions of dollars to straighten out curves and improve tracks to save 15 minutes. So that's an innovative breakthrough that we achieved. With regard to the Northeast Corridor Commission future investments, we certainly support that, but we don't need that to implement our plan at this time. But I believe that because we'll make the Northeast Corridor more successful, more affordable, and accessible to coach passengers with regard to high-speed rail, we can be a catalyst for those future unfunded investments.
So just to be clear, is a lot of your idea, is it to I've heard that Amtrak compared to European high-speed rail has a lot of schedule padding, and that is part of your plan to sort of wring out savings with sort of less padding. And can you do that reliably? And so what kind of things would you implement to make that sort of possible? Why isn't Amtrak doing it now?
Well, actually, we're going to be conservative in our operating schedule because there are billions of dollars of infrastructure improvements underway, such as replacing the bridge over the Connecticut River and other track and signal and catenary improvements, bridge improvements as well. So we need to have some conservative operation in our schedules to meet those future construction requirements. The way we're achieving efficiency and improving reliability in the Northeast Corridor is first synchronizing all the train operations so there's no longer this disparity of trains that are running 125 miles an hour in some places and up to 160 in other places. They're all running the same speeds. So that simplifies it. And the other efficiencies we achieve, we're getting better utilization of the train sets, better utilization of the crews, and we're only maintaining one type of fleet. Right now, Amtrak is maintaining two different train set fleets that run at two different speeds, two different maintenance requirements, two different crew training requirements. Nobody in the world runs rail passenger service this inefficiently, but we'll simplify that by going with a standard high-speed fleet with the Liberty Liner 250.
Scott, your company is going to be investing, it says, according to documentation and public documentation that you've released, somewhere in the region of $2.4 billion to repay the federal loan for the next-gen Acela train sets. One, that is a big investment for any company. And how are you going to turn a profit? Because as we said at the top of this, Amtrak has not made a profit since it was launched in 1971. Commuter rail, train services in this country are not making a profit. So how are you going to?
Right. So the operating losses, the total losses are related to fully allocated costs, which means it includes the infrastructure. Right now, Amtrak is actually operating profitably between Boston and Washington on the cost above the rail. When you look at just the crews, the train set maintenance, the train set financing, marketing, administration, power consumption. With those costs above the rail, a train can be operated profitably. But we're not looking for a free ride. We know we can make a profit above the rail and increase those profits with the greater efficiencies of a standard fleet that we would finance to own and maintain. But we would pay user fees to Amtrak to use the tracks, user fees to use the stations, and monthly performance incentives. So we have two major infrastructure funds. Their interests are confidential because they don't want to get into a political or public taffy pull over this. But Amtrak knows who our investors are and that we are fit, willing, and able to make the largest private sector investment ever in Amtrak. And our investment is not in the infrastructure. We let the public sector do what it does best there, as they do with the highway and the air system. Our investment is in the train sets. And so the investment we have available is actually much higher than $2.4 billion. That's just to repay the federal loan for the train sets that we want to own and operate as the Liberty Liner 250. We have several more billions of dollars available because we have to build additional train sets so that in the future we can run nonstop service between New York and Boston.
So, Scott, are there currently, without asking for major concessions or regulatory changes, are the slots available on the Northeast Corridor to run these trains as you project?
Yes. In my railroad career, I've been responsible for a number of challenging operation startups and schedulings. Hundreds of trains a day that I developed the operating plan for the Center City commuter rail tunnels through the heart of Philadelphia. That was the first ever done in North America. That would be like connecting Grand Central Terminal in New York with Penn Station. That's what we did in Philadelphia. I achieved that very successfully and smoothly. I also did Taiwan high-speed rail and very successfully and smoothly over there. So I'm very familiar with the dynamics of train scheduling and operations. And all this has been reviewed and approved by our mentor and our senior advisor, Paul Reistrup, who is the former president of Amtrak. So yes, the slots are available. And as I said, because we simplify the Northeast Corridor operations, we actually create capacity that can be better utilized by all the commuter trains and the other users, including some freight trains.
Scott, let's turn to the pricing, because that's another thing. You're going to, as you said at the top of this interview, have a train service that has the three types or the three tiers of
triple class service, right?
So, what are you looking at for pricing? Because one of the criticisms I would say about Amtrak is, it runs itself like an airline. And the pricing of the tickets can be expensive. And the closer it comes to you wanting to use it, the price shoots up. So how are you going to combat that? Because, the whole point of this project, as we understand it, is you're trying to decongest the airports, get people out of their cars. But, they're only going to do that if the price is right.
So Amtrak uses dynamic pricing that the airlines do. And we're not really competing with the airlines. When I mentioned at the beginning about Amtrak's single-digit markets here, nearly 90% of the competition is the result of people driving on the highway or using discount buses. And so when you drive, you don't have a higher expense for fuel or tolls because you decide to go at the last minute. So why would we compete with our major competitor in the same way? So we are definitely going to move away from that gotcha pricing simply because you decided to travel at the last minute. You're going to have a much higher fare is number one. Number two, we're increasing with the hourly service with the Liberty Liners, the total availability of service over 35%. And we're increasing the total of seats available for sale over 20%. So that gives us much greater pricing flexibility to be much more affordable and competitive. And so, for instance, we're going to look very closely at keeping the coach prices as close to the out-of-pocket cost of driving. We're going to have a family coach. And in this family coach, a parent or a grandparent can always bring a lap child, a child who's under 2, free all the time. And for children under 18 who need a seat, you'll be able to bring up to 2 children free with each adult or senior citizen ticket. So these are major breakthroughs in affordability. And the fact is, for the first time, we'll have coach service on high-speed trains in America. So that'll all across the board make high-speed rail affordable to senior citizens, families, students, persons with disabilities, and low-income passengers. So all those are an approach and a solution for affordability. We're able to do it profitably because we're increasing the load factors, the occupancy on the trains, and we're getting much better utilization of the trains in this efficient standard operation of high-speed trains.
So Scott, so obviously to make this happen, public buy-in is important, but the other piece is, of course, the delegation, the senators, Congress people, certainly this administration. Have you had any positive signs? My understanding is that Amtrak has not been particularly responsive so far.
That's correct. And you'd have to ask Amtrak why, because there's more money on the table with our proposal than without us. There's a greater opportunity for Amtrak to succeed with much higher ridership. And let me just say at the beginning of the show, I said that's a challenge that we've confronted as an opportunity. And if you doubled Amtrak's record ridership, as I mentioned, it's still in the single digits. But guess what? I did Taiwan High-Speed Rail, and they too had a ridership record of 78 million passengers last year. And the population between Taipei and Kaohsiung is less than half the population between Boston, New York, and Washington. So that shows you why we have such a great interest from private investors. And the good news is to deliver these results, and I say this to those in Congress and the administration, we do not need new federal legislation. We don't need additional federal spending. We don't need any tax breaks. We just need a mutually beneficial operating and maintenance agreement with Amtrak to partner with them. And that'll unleash the largest private sector investment ever in Amtrak.
Scott, I want to put to you the business case very briefly because we're sort of like getting close to the end of the podcast. I can see the benefit, and as you outlined, for families and seniors, we're pricing that way. But when it comes to a business person, it's not necessarily about the price. It's about the speed of where they can get to. And again, just going back to the fact that the trains will still be slower compared to, obviously, the airlines. I mean, are you going to be able to attract enough of the business community?
Yes. Because the most successful part of Amtrak's Northeast Corridor is between New York and Washington. And so there, we're actually doubling the service in a very innovative way. Instead of one seller power for those business and first-class passengers, and then just one slower regional train power for all the coach passengers, we actually double the service now. Because every train is the same with triple-class service. Now everyone has a train every 30 minutes between New York and Washington. Plus, to create capacity on those trains, we actually add hourly nonstops between New York and Washington in just 1 hour, 59 minutes. So yes, we can't run much faster than 160, but by running nonstop, even airlines can't compete with that 1 hour, 59 minutes, New York to Washington.
Briefly, I'm just going to quickly ask you a question and then I'll let Greg finish off. There's also another project out there. It could be years if it ever actually comes to fruition, called Northeast Maglev. I'm sure you're well aware of it. And obviously,
yes,
those trains, are super, super high speed. If it were to come to fruition, I mean, it would effectively beat you hands down there, because the Washington to New York would be an hour faster than even your service.
Well, they would impact us on the nonstop trips, but there's a huge demographic of all the intermediate towns. As I said, the population between Boston, New York, and Washington is double of what exists in Taiwan at 44 million people. So the maglev cannot serve intermediate places like Old Saybrook, Bridgeport, New Haven, Wilmington, Delaware. So when I did Taiwan high-speed rail, they thought, oh, the West Coast line is going to dry up. Actually, the ridership on the West Coast line to intermediate places like Hsinchu have continued to grow. So we'll still be successful serving all the intermediate markets while maglev zips along with the nonstops of the major cities.
Scott, I have to say for myself, I have started using current Amtrak service in place of the commuter rail. It's been coming in at about the same price, frankly, if I book ahead, and it's quicker and
more comfortable.
It's more comfortable. I'm not sure it's more reliable, but it's certainly, I've been sort of wondering that. I mean, certainly that's an interest to a lot of people, is that in these intervening towns, whether they get the service, whether they get more service than they currently do. I know a lot of high-speed rail is basically, Connecticut is just the hallway, as you go from one Boston to New York, and maybe Stamford, maybe New Haven. But your plan isn't cutting service to those intervening towns?
No, absolutely not. We will maintain to major stops such as New Haven and Stamford hourly service, intermediates, places like Bridgeport and New London every 2 hours. So it's the same number of trains that they have today.
So one question, if I may, just before you go, I thought that in earlier plans there was the idea for 12-car trains, and I know that the technology is capable of 12-car trains. But that's sort of like one of those long time rollout things for Amtrak. Do you guys sort of see it in the same way? It's like a nine cars running more frequently and then maybe 12 cars, or?
Well, Greg, you guys asked some interesting, excellent questions today, and you did your homework, and that's correct. We have advocated for our investment in these trains to eventually be 12 cars because of the capacity strains in the Northeast Corridor. So we could serve more passengers, but still use the same slots. Unfortunately, for this coming year to implement our Liberty Liner plan, we have to roll with what's already built, which is 9 cars. But you're right. Those train sets are designed and engineered to operate with, as you would say in the airline industry, a stretch version of 12 cars. And we will do that. It'll take time to get the order in and manufacture, several years. But we will operate stretch versions in the future because we suspect we're going to be so successful that we're going to need more space for family coaches, for instance. It's going to be the most comfortable way for families to travel. And I've already heard from people lining up, hey, yeah, why wouldn't Amtrak let kids 2 and under ride for free in your laps already? So we'll get many people, single parents, say, now I can bring my 2-year-old for free all the time, right away. We'll need more seats for things like that.
Scott, it's been a fascinating conversation, and we will obviously follow this up, and it'll be interesting to see what the politicians and Amtrak actually do ultimately make of this. But for the time being, Scott Spencer, Chief Operations Officer for AmeriStarRail, thanks for joining us. And
You're welcome.
That's it for this edition. As I say, thank you to Greg and, of course, to Scott Spencer, our guest. Don't forget, you can read transportation stories on the digital pages of ctexaminer.com. And if you're looking for things to do, don't forget our events calendar as well. And while you're visiting our website, why not sign up and subscribe as well to make sure you don't miss out on all of the week's news. This is CT Examiner Weekly, reporting and supporting what matters. I'm Brian Scott Smith. Thank you for listening.